Hello, Busy Bees. It's Miss Kelly, and I'm here to read another story to you guys. I hope you are doing well and enjoying your summer. And I know that when it's up to your parents when they're comfortable with it, but sooner rather than later, like things will start opening up again, and you can start doing more things with playgrounds and stuff like that. As long as you're careful and your parents are careful, there's more things to do coming up because it's been a lot of time at home, right? Well, hopefully you've been reading and enjoying time with your parents and your siblings and your animals. And today I have a book for you that I think is a really good book about, it's about a couple things, but one of the things I think of, it's about thinking you know somebody, but not really knowing them. And then when you get to know them, what you thought you knew was not true, if that makes any sense. What I mean is, sometimes you might think you might not like somebody, and then you get to know them, and you find out you like them a lot. So this is a slightly longer book than we normally do, but not too much. It's called The Berenstain Bears and the Sitter. Miss Kelly actually has a hardback. I can get that on the screen better. Of this one. This is one of my favorites and my kids' favorites. Mom and Dad are going out. Gramps and Gran are too. Who will stay home with the cubs? Just anyone. Won't do. It's a cool picture of them looking at the sitter coming up. Do they look excited or do they look nervous? I think they look nervous. This, said Papa Bear as he took the day's mail from the Bear family's mailbox. It was a notice telling about an important meeting that night at the Bear Country Town Hall. Mama Bear called up Grizzly Gran. Brother and sister sometimes stayed with Gramps and Gran when Mama and Papa Bear had to be away. But Gramps and Gran were planning to go to the meeting too. So brother and sister couldn't stay with them. There's a lot going on in these pages, so let's start over here. Or with Aunt Maud or Cousin Wilbur. They were going to the meeting too. Why can't we go with you? Asked Sister, beginning to get a little upset. Yeah, added Brother Bear, because, said Papa, this meeting is for grown-ups. And besides, it won't be over until late, way past your bedtime. Well, where are we going to stay? The cubs wanted to know. You're going to stay right here, said Mama, as she put down the phone. Alone? Asked Sister. Of course not, said Mama. I've arranged for a sitter. There's a lot going on. Let's see. A sitter, said Brother. Who's it going to be? Sister asked. Mrs. Grizzle, who lives in the hollow stump at the end of the road, said Mama, feeling much better about the whole thing. Mrs. Grizzle, said the cubs, not feeling better at all. See that cloud? Look nervous. Dark cloud. Once, when Sister was playing with her friends, their ball went to Mrs. Grizzle's flower garden. Mrs. Grizzle wasn't too happy about it. And another time, when Brother was flying his kite, it swooped and bumped Mrs. Grizzle on the hat. She wasn't too tickled about that either. Later that evening, after the supper things had been cleaned up, Mom and Papa got ready to go to the town meeting. But who's going to scrub our backs, read us a story, and tuck us in? Asked Sister, still a little nervous about the idea of a sitter. I understand that Mrs. Grizzle has raised 7 cubs of her own, said Mama, putting on her hat, and I'm sure she's a perfectly good back scrubber, story reader, and tucker-inner. She's not going to scrub my back, Brother Bear said under his breath. Thanks for bearing with Miss Kelly on this. I don't have this one memorized. It's a lot of words. Mrs. Grizzle came walking up the path to the bear's treehouse right on time. There was no question about it. It was the same Mrs. Grizzle who got bopped with the kite and didn't like cubs tromping her flowers. She was very large, almost as big as Papa, and she carried a drawstring bag. Evening all, said Mrs. Grizzle in a loud, jolly voice. Well, time's a-wasting you two, she said to Mama and Papa. You better skedaddle after your meeting. Mrs. Grizzle had a strong way of saying things, and folks usually did what she said. Mama and Papa kissed the cubs goodnight and skedaddled. Phew, said Mrs. Grizzle as she sat down in Papa's big chair. It sure is good to get a load off your feet. She took off her hat and looked into her drawstring bag. There's something about somebody looking into a bag that makes cubs very curious. Mrs. Grizzle, said Sister. Yes? What's in the bag? Oh, nothing much. Just some things I take along when I go sittin', a piece of string, a pack of cards. Meanwhile, over at the town hall, the bears were getting ready for their important meeting. They were getting ready for speeches, voting, and arguments about some new laws. But Mama's mind was not on the meeting. Neither was Papa's. Mama and Papa Bear were thinking about what was going on back home. Sister looked a little worried when we left, fretted Mama. So did Brother, agreed Papa. They decided to call home and see how things were going. Back then they had to use a phone like that. A public phone, where people usually have cell phones now. Things are going just fine, said Mrs. Grizzle. Brother and Sister can't come to the phone right now. They're busy playing cat's cradle. Have a good meeting, shouted the cubs, but they say to have a good meeting. Playing a lot of fun games. After Cat's Cradle, they played Go Fish with the cards that came out of Mrs. Grizzle's drawstring bag. Then they played Tiddlywinks with a special set of winks that Mrs. Grizzle had made out of polished stones and a snail shell cup. Seems fun. I have not played Tiddlywinks. After a while, the cubs got the yawns and Mrs. Grizzle began getting them ready for bed. And she did indeed turn out to be a very good back scrubber. Brother changed his mind about not having his back scrubbed. And she was a fine story reader and a really super tucker-inner. I hope Mama and Papa had a good meeting, said Sister with a yawn, because we had a very good sit. The cubs had a number of different sitters from time to time, but Mrs. Grizzle was their favorite, and they were always glad to see her. I hope you guys liked it. Maybe you can think about times where you thought you knew what somebody was like and were either scared of them or didn't like them, and then you got to know them and they turned out to be really awesome. I think that happens a lot. So it's the whole don't judge a book by its cover thing. Give people a chance. I hope you guys are doing well. And if you need any ideas of things to do on rainy days or, you know, when you're bored, I just want to show you one thing that me and my kids have been doing. We have been painting rocks. Let's see if I can film this a little better. We've been painting rocks and shells. I'm going to show you. Here's one we did. Just a cool little design. And here's a snail shell that we did. One more. Oh, here's a snail shell with a couple little designs on it that my daughter did. So there are lots of different things you can do. You go out in nature and look for cool rocks. This looks like an egg, but it's a rock I painted white. You can find fun stuff to paint and to search for. Miss you guys. I hope you're doing well. Hope you have a good day.